I always say you're going to get exactly what you expect. And so if you have no expectations or you're not communicating those expectations as far as these are my non-negotiables, then it's a free-for-all.
How do you build a network, run a profitable business, and make an impact? Oh, and have a personal life at the same time? That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. I'm your host, Chaz Wilson, husband, father of 5, author of the book 5+1, president and co-founder of Master Networks Inc., a national networking organization. Look, each week I bring you successful entrepreneurs who will share success strategies of how to effectively build a network, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper.
Hey everybody, welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper. This is episode 88. You're joining me today on the episode. And remember, if you're joining live on Facebook, you can ask questions of myself or our guest. And if you're listening on Facebook live driving, I suppose you could do that. You shouldn't probably type a question. You should go back and listen later and then type your question. But today, my guest, I'm going to introduce right now on our episode here, Pam Borton. Pam is an ICF senior executive coach, a professional speaker, and an author. She lives in State College, Pennsylvania, and is the founder of Pam Borton Partners, a leadership consulting firm, and Women on Point. And after 27 years coaching college basketball, she transitioned from the sports world to the business world, which we're going to talk a lot about today on the episode. She used her coaching skills to help C-suite and senior leaders reach their next level. Her leadership coaching spans organizations of all sizes, including Fortune 500 companies and across all industries, including finance, retail, IT, hospitality, higher education, healthcare, and more. Her business coaching clients include Best Buy, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Hyatt Corporation, and Merrill Lynch, among others. Guys, please help me welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper, Pam Borton to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with your here today with all of you and all of you listeners out there.
Yeah, so this is exciting. I realized as we invited you to the show where the overlap was as you coached college basketball in the great state of Minnesota, where I lived for many years as a Golden Gopher fan. So what I would like to know is how did you, let's go back to kind of that origin story. How did you get involved in sports and then eventually coaching? And then we'll transition into business, but tell us about that.
Well, I actually grew up in the Midwest in Ohio and started playing basketball as a passion and just loved playing, and went to college and played in college. And then right from college, I went and was a graduate assistant in a Division I program at 21 years old. By the time I got my master's, I was 22 years old, and I knew my dream was to be a Division I college basketball coach, and I would go anywhere in the country that was warm. And somebody gave me my first opportunity in the great state of Vermont. So I think I jinxed myself when I said warm weather.
Yes.
Because I went to Vermont, then I went to Boston College, and then I ended up in Minnesota. So my whole career was jinxed when I said warm. But
yeah, for sure.
So that's a little bit of my playing days, and then my coaching for 27 years in Division I college basketball.
So I always think first of all, I think there's a ton of overlap between sports and business. I mean, I think my days of playing sports, coaching, et cetera, has helped me so much in business at many levels. We'll dive deep into that. But I'm just curious, this is more of a fun question. What about coaching Division I basketball was different than you anticipated? Like, did you go in thinking, this dream of coaching Division I basketball, here's all these things, and then you got there and you're like, well, this is different and that's different. Like, what was one of those things that you thought was different than you expected?
Well, I think when you start out at 22 and then you go for 27 years, you start coaching because you love the game, you have a passion for the game, and you love to teach, and you're an educator and you love to teach the game. And over the course of time, just like across industries now, that, what you did then isn't what you do now, and the job changed. The expectations changed, the skill set changed, and I went from being a basketball coach into a CEO running a multi-million-dollar program. And no one ever gave me a manual for that on how to hire, fire, handle, public scrutiny, to the media, to running a multi-million-dollar budget, all I wanted to do when I was 22 years old is to teach the game of basketball, and because it's what I love to do. So you just have to, like I do now as a coach, you have to transfer your skills, and you have to continue to change and stay relevant within your industry.
Yeah, I always talk about how we believe we have these kind of power statements, and I always say we believe in reinvention. I think reinventing ourselves is a key component to staying relevant, staying successful. Some people look at that as a negative thing, but you've kind of had, as you said, you had to reinvent yourself. You went in going, I'm gonna be a coach, an educator, and then you realized you realized, which I'm not sure all of them do. You realized what it had to take to be a CEO of this organization. And you didn't, no one handed you the manual. So who did you learn from? Where did you find those skills that it would take to be the CEO of this great organization? We have people listening who are CEOs of their, whether it be one person or now multi-million-dollar businesses. We all have coaches and mentors. Who are those people? Who did you look to for that experience?
You have a lot of mentors, men and women, throughout the coaching profession. But when you're coaching, you look at mentors as far as, the X's and O's and teaching and, building programs and so forth. But when you actually get in that seat 6 inches over, you really learn on the job. You're never prepared for that big job. You're never prepared for that next job. You might be 70, 85% prepared, but you are learning those skills on the job by being successful and making mistakes and learning from failure. And, you just, in sports, you just learn to get back up off your feet, brush yourself off, and on to the next play. And, those are some of the things that you also incorporate now into executive coaching, is helping people, learn those skills, is reinventing themselves. They have to learn on the job. They have to have that confidence and belief in themselves, and to embrace, just learning different skill sets as well.
Yeah. So what was the biggest challenge you had as a coach? We'll get into the business stuff, but as a coach, just curious.
Oh, that's a great question. There's so many challenges. Every day was extremely challenging. I think there's so many challenges. I think it's, learning to have grace while under fire in many different situations. As a coach at that level, every single day you're putting out fires all day long.
Yeah.
And then it's, shifting your mind to then go to practice. That was my haven every day, was between those 4 lines, was to teach and to educate and to actually work with those student athletes. This is my why. This is why I am doing what I'm doing. But every other part of the day was, putting out fires. In college athletics is insane. And, whether it's football, basketball, it's just absolutely insane today. And so I think was just, being able to shift quickly, having grace under fire, calm and cool, as a cucumber, and just being able to shift from, high intensity to being able to teach and to get your team to perform at a high level consistently every single night.
Gosh, there's several thoughts I had that when you said, well, several things. To stay that sort of emotional intelligence you have to have as a high level coach, because I'm sure there's, like, my challenge as a coach is I'm very emotional. I wear it right on my sleeves. I'm so into a game. I get, to stay that sort of level focus and also balance those emotions, I'm sure is a challenge or a skill set to learn and develop over time. But I loved what you said. You said that it was a haven within those 4 lines. It makes me think, as a business owner, how often are we actually first of all, how often are we actually practicing our skills? And second, are we looking at the practice of these skills as a haven from everything else? Or are we looking at it like this obligation? I've got to show up to practice. Really powerful what you just said. So how do you deal as a coach? Because this is so transfers to business. How do you deal with personalities? Because you've got all these personalities and potentially some rising stars and those maybe who are just trying to make a team, stay on a team, those kinds of things. How do you as a coach and your other coaches, right? You've got all these personalities in this organization. How do you manage the personalities and lead them? What were some of those experiences like?
Well, I think as a leader, as a leader and also as a business owner and now as an executive coach, everything that I did as a coach, I've transferred into executive coaching, and then also helping my, clients, executive teams and organizationally be able to adapt. And, when you realize it's not about me, it's a lot of it is around self-awareness and me understanding my approach and my style. And then, this isn't about me, but in order to do anything magical, I have to get a team to perform at a high level. And so it's me learning how to motivate, inspire, and communicate differently with different individuals, different teams, and being able to put my own approach and style aside and say, this isn't about me. This is about me getting this team to perform at a high level. And so what do I need to do?
So what are some of those skills of leadership? Because I know obviously your two organizations and the things you teach are highly focused around leadership. So number one, why is leadership so important? And number two, what are some of those skills that we need to have as leaders in running a business?
Well, I think to answer your first question, you might need to remind me about the second question, but those important skills in leadership is influence. When I think of influence and also impact, I know you're writing your third book, but I'm a big believer on influence and impact. And the greater influence and impact that we can have on people's lives as leaders, the more that we're going to be able to accomplish. Because again, the sooner that we realize it's not about me, it's not about I, but it's about the we. It's our responsibilities as leaders to be able to impact and influence people in order to do things that you never dreamed of doing, or helping people and teams get to a place that they've never dreamed of doing. I think also as business leaders, as business owners, it's, that belief in yourself, it's that hard work, it's that attitude every single day. Those were always my two non-negotiables as a coach, was somebody's work ethic and attitude. And I think as a business owner, as a solo entrepreneur, and then bringing on business partners, those are still two of my non-negotiables. Even for myself is, what is my work ethic? Do I want to be successful, and how much am I putting into this? And then also, what is my attitude? I have complete control over those two things, and everything else is, beside the point.
So here, I have a follow-up question to that, but I also want to point something out. So the follow-up question will be, let me focus on this piece too. My mind's going so many places because you hit so many good things in there. Guys, if you're listening, make sure, if you have a question on Facebook, make sure you post that for Pam. So Pam, the thing you said to me, and you talked about influence and impact, and yes, I'm writing the third book. It's interesting. And I said before we started the live, I'd love to send you an early copy of this and get your feedback, because I think feedback is how we grow and how we improve. But it's interesting. You didn't know this, but the two things that we say that we believe as we've sort of dissected this is that how you make an impact is made up of really two big things. It's attitude and skill, which you could say work ethic is kind of those skills that you have to take your work ethic to. So it's interesting that you brought those two up because they're non-negotiable for us as well. But what do you do when you say they're non-negotiable? Did you ever have like a personality or a player who just didn't fit those, or their attitude got to a place? I'm not asking you to name names. I mean, that's not it. But how do you deal with that? Because I think business owners watching this go, hey, sometimes I have this, superstar on my team, but now, boy, that attitude or that culture, that ethic starts to shift. How do I deal with that as a leader?
Well, I think it's really important, that culture is very important, but really setting expectations right up front is setting expectations on this is how we're going to do business. This is how we're going to behave, those behavioral agreements. So, I always say you're going to get exactly what you expect. And so if you have no expectations, or you're not communicating those expectations as far as these are my non-negotiables, then it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Then it's creating that culture of accountability when people are, players or people start getting across those boundaries, they start crossing those boundaries and they start behaving differently. I would say a lot of leaders that I work with now, they don't have the skills to hold people accountable. They don't build those relationships of trust to be able to hold people accountable, to bring them back into, no, this is how we do things here. And there's always those times where people, then it's delivering that feedback and whether it's positive or whether it's constructive, because you're trying to create a consistent culture of where people want to work and where people can be successful. And so I call those the big three.
Okay.
The expectations, delivering real-time feedback when something good or something not so good happens, because you're creating a culture of accountability.
So go through those three one more time.
Communicating expectations, delivering real-time feedback whether it's positive or constructive. And because that's what we do in sports,
Yes.
we don't do it at the end of the season or we're not going to win. But because you're creating a culture of accountability, and that's what people want. That's
I love it.
Thrive.
I'm just writing these down, guys. If you're, we'll put these in the show notes. The really big three are communicating expectations, giving real-time feedback, and a culture of accountability are so crucial to leadership. Do you think that that's of those three, do you think it starts with communicating expectations is where the real failure comes in at times, or is it the feedback, or is it all three?
Well, I think it's all three. It's really in that order. I have a whole methodology on building high performing teams, and those are really my last three. There's a lot of things that need to happen before that. But I call those the big three, is after you have a vision and a common goal and people understand what their roles are within a business and an organization on accomplishing that vision. There's a lot of communication around that as well, but I feel like those are the big three that keeps your culture together, that keeps expectations, that keeps the train on the tracks. But those are really the three I would say that I would say many, many leaders and teams don't have.
So, and maybe you kind of answered it in this, but it makes me think, what's the biggest mistake leaders and business leaders right now are making that you see out there?
Oh, I go back to not really creating a vision and a direction and a strategic plan for your people, your teams, and your organization. It's not everyone understanding what that clear vision is.
Yeah. And I think, what are your thoughts about, because I know some people are listening to this. Some people listening to this are solopreneurs, right? They don't have the team per se, but I think that it goes even just whether it's somebody you employ, but it goes to strategic partners, whatever. Would you agree that you can create a vision for them as well, even though they technically don't work for you?
Absolutely. I do that within my own business. I have a vision for my business. I look at what my role is in the business and the things that I need to outsource. What is my role? What are my strengths? What are the things that I'm really good at? What are the things I want to do? And those other things that maybe I'm not so good at, and we're all not so good at certain things, and I can outsource those things. I set yearly goals for my business each year and what's my strategy in reaching those goals. And then you get down to the big three. It's, those expectations. And if I don't work hard and if I don't have an attitude of this is a process, I coach this in large organizations, but I also use this in my own business as well.
What do you think has been your biggest success, whether it be coaching or coaching businesses, coaching basketball or coaching businesses? What's been the biggest success you've seen, biggest turnaround, biggest thing you've seen as a success story?
Oh, the biggest thing I've seen. Oof. I mean, I obviously I've had so many in sports. I've taken a team to a Final Four. I've taken them to Sweet 16s. Numerous NCAA tournaments. I felt like I built the University of Minnesota's program over 3 different times by graduating All-Americans or, losing transfers in 1 year. So many successes there, but I've helped in the business world now. And, I look back and I just have such a bigger perspective on my career and my life, that those 27 years of coaching college basketball prepared me for what I'm actually doing today, which I love. I've helped, multi-million-dollar companies do mergers and acquisitions where you're bringing 2 cultures, 2 teams, all different kinds of people together to be one culture and one team. And, being able to do that in the sports world and now in the business world has been, some of the biggest accomplishments and turnarounds for these mergers and acquisitions or private equity companies that have been able to successfully transition into one culture and one team, to create that environment of that positive influence that that company needs to be successful.
I think sometimes people listen to, whether it be a book or a podcast like this, and we talk about things like culture and leadership and accountability, and these words sometimes get used, tossed around, and people go, I just really don't know where to start. Like, it's not something I've been familiar with. Maybe I was in a corporate job. I'm kind of starting my own business. I don't know. There's lots of transitions people make. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts of where people should start on this path of sort of self-awareness, self-improvement, improving their leadership? Where's a place they should start?
Well, the first thing that comes, there's so many different places to start, but I say we start with ourselves. I mean, you have to be able to lead yourself and hold yourself accountable before you can hold anybody else accountable or expect other things from other people. But I think just being able to identify what your values are, identify what strengths are, and then incorporating that into your life personally and professionally is really the core of who you are and really the success that you're going to experience.
Oh, so good. Guys, we're listening to Pam Borton on Connect, Share, Prosper, former college basketball coach, and now helps businesses, leaders develop their business, develop themselves as leadership. She owns a leadership consulting firm, really high-level, successful entrepreneur. I'm so impressed with the transition, because people could go through the experience or they could grow through the experience, and you were able to grow through that experience of being a coach and now reinvent yourself with those skills that you have. And I think that's just a fascinating thing that is a great example just in and of itself for all of us. If people want to learn more about you and the things you offer and the things you're teaching and saying, where can they find you? How can they find you?
Well, I'm very active on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can just type in my name and LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. But I also have a website, PamBortonPartners.com. And I'm pretty accessible. I'm very responsive. And I'm all about making a greater influence and impact on people's lives. And I'm very giving of my time. And, everything I do is for others and to be that servant leader. And so anybody that has any questions or any comments, I would love to hear from them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So what do you see for the future for you, for business that you're developing? What are you working on?
Well, again, it's being able to reach more people. And so I'm focusing on scaling my business, and I'm doing other things on a bigger scope, more organizationally. I'm still working with individuals and executive teams, but there's a lot of people that are really investing and really believe in professional development and coaching, and
yes,
just also being very selective and surrounding myself with people that want to be high performers and people that want to get to their own Final Fours. Those I really enjoy working with.
Okay, a couple of I used to sometimes call this a lightning round, but that kind of confuses people, so I don't really do it. But it's sort of like just some random thought questions, okay? A favorite business book or leadership book?
Oh, there's a new one out. I always like What Got You Here Won't Get You There, but there's a new one out called 10% Happier.
10% Happier. I've not heard of that.
I just bought that one, but 10% Happier.
Okay, great. Love that. Okay, what's the thing? And this is like doesn't have to be, in business, often we don't get real, hey, I did this, I accomplished that, because you said it's not about you. But if I gave you a window here to feel really comfortable to brag about something, what's like one of the things you accomplished that was such a dream for you? You worked really hard to accomplish it, kind of a brag moment. What was something you accomplished that you're like, man, I did that. We did that. What was that?
In business or
either
life?
Either.
Oh, I think just being able to the transition from that world to this world, I think, everyone says like, oh my gosh, what did you do? How did you do this? How did you believe in yourself that you actually could do this? So I think just transitioning from the sports world after almost, 3 decades into becoming a very successful entrepreneur and business owner, I feel like this is a whole different stratosphere that I'm in right now. So that makes me very proud and very happy.
So good. Sometimes I ask people if they could live in a different state or live in a different place, where would they live? So you already said somewhere warmer. We already know that, right?
Oh, but I'm knocking on wood right now. So
yeah, right. So good. Pam, thank you so much for just an amazing interview. So much depth here. Guys, I want to encourage you to go out, reach out to Pam, follow her on LinkedIn, Facebook. Again, PamBortonPartners.com. Correct? PamBortonPartners.com to check out what she's doing, what she's working on. So many amazing things here. I love the way, kind of recap here. I love the different ways you can transfer from sports to business. And remember, she talked about it's high level of self-awareness. It's not about us. And we can motivate, inspire others around us by the things that we do, the things that we say, and how we motivate others. And the big three: to communicate clearly the expectations, give real-time feedback, and have a culture of accountability, which means, now make good, do what you say you're going to do, are the things that we talk about all the time on this show. So many great nuggets. Go back, listen to this, share this episode to somebody that this will make an impact on and will help them. Remember, at Master Networks, this is the thing that we do. We network together. We keep people together to help them build a business, to educate, equip, and empower them to build legacy beyond the business. That's what we do at Master Networks. If you're interested in learning more about Master Networks, visit our website, masternetworks.com, where you can learn about a local chapter in your area. And if there isn't one, you can start a chapter in your area by clicking for more information. And there was a question that came in. Josie's just trying, don't end the episode. That's all right. What was that?
Brad Schroeder.
Brad Schroeder, I believe, is in Louisiana.
Pam and Chaz, as you stepped out on your own as a first-time entrepreneur.
As we stepped out on our own as a first-time entrepreneur.
What can you look back and wish you had done differently?
What could you look back and wish you could have done differently? Good question, Brad. Pam, I'll shoot over to you.
Oh, what can we look back and done differently? And I have a couple different answers to that question. Brad, is, I think what would I have done differently? I would say I would not have done anything differently, because I learned so much by making mistakes. And, whether it's hiring the wrong people to help me with my work, or, unless you go through some of the yucky part of being an entrepreneur, you don't know what you don't know. And so I really don't have any regrets, but I would also say that, there's so many people that take their time in kind of making sure that all their T's are crossed and I's are dotted before they roll anything out. And I would say, just go.
Yeah.
Build the plane as you fly it. And, there's so many processes and things that we need to have in order as coaches and entrepreneurs, but just go and build the plane as you're flying it, because it's, you're going to miss those opportunities in the long run.
I agree. I don't look back with a lot of regret and say, boy, I wish I'd have done this differently. I think there's things you look back and you go, well, I could have done that differently, but it's a lesson. Let's learn from it and let's improve it. But yeah, I don't look back, Brad, in any way of saying, God, I wish I'd have done this differently. The only thing that I continue to say is I wish I'd have set higher targets, kind of believed in myself more at that beginning, because I kind of go, well, if I could just accomplish this, and then when I proved that, I went to the next, I should just set a higher target and go for it right out of the chute. That would be the only advice, Brad, is just believe in yourself and surround yourself with people like Pam who help others and make an impact because they've been there. They know what to do. So Pam, once again, thank you for being on this episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. So appreciate you being on this. Guys, remember, every Monday, noon Central, I'll bring you successful entrepreneurs and leaders like Pam who will share their successes, their challenges, their insights to help you become a better business owner and help you to build that legacy beyond the business. Until next Monday, we'll see you. Connect, Share, Prosper. Take care, everybody.